first episode of the New York Talks. The idea is to kind of use some of the prominent members of the community to talk about something that is on our minds or things that we would like to have some thoughts on. And today the idea is to try to understand from those that have been in the city for long, what do they think is going to happen after this crisis, okay? So do we have like the usual format? We're gonna have the initial like the fireside chat, and then we hope to leave it to you to discuss and ask questions. Okay. I'm about to reshare my screen, and then we are ready to go. All right. And we also have a guest from Milan who's going to talk with us. Just give me a second, because of course the screen is making some fun, but there we go. All right. So as said, we have a guest from Milan that wants to talk to us about a couple of things, and thank you so much, Elena, for joining today. And we know that it's pretty late in Milan. Elena is, I don't know if you know her already, but Elena is the glue that stitch up all of us together in the Bocconi alumni community all around the world. She's the director of the alumni community, and she works closely with all the team all across the world, the chapters, and also the different board member and the university firsthand. Elena, take it away.
Thank you, Andrea, and good evening and welcome everybody also from my side. I am really thrilled to be here with you, and although we are in two different continents, I feel great warmth, and also virtually we are together, and this is one of the strengths of our community. So the first thank is for Andrea for having organized this with all the New York chapter dream team. In a few months, we succeeded to create a very strong team, and I always say that the really strong strength of our community is in the hands of our volunteers, and you are really a great example. Welcome also, thanks to Alberto Bisin, that a lot of the alumni, and I spoke also with some friends in Milan, with some professor that knows very well Alberto, and so many greetings and many hello also from Bocconi size at large, and a lot of us appreciate a lot not only the competencies of Alberto, but also his styles and values that is very, very close to our community. And then we have also two other speakers that, first of all, for me are friends. The last time, also this year, we planned to meet with Giovanni and Roberta, and but the time arrived to also shake our hands and to have some big hugs. And they are great manager, and they are also an active part of Friends of Bocconi. And so thanks a lot also to Roberta and Alberto. I would like to say something about the Bocconi alumni community. It's not so easy in 2 or 3 minutes explain what is a Bocconi alumni community, but I will try. We are a global and inclusive network, and we have 69 chapters all around the world, and the New York chapter is one of these. And also in North America, we have also some other several chapters. We have also 12 topic groups, because we organize our value proposition focused on lifelong learning, career advice, networking. So we are people that likes and loves to do something, to be very concrete in our doing. But maybe, first of all, Bocconi alumni community is friendship, emotion, the pleasure of staying together and helping each other, and also the happiness of giving back and sharing ideas, projects, activities. So as a lot of us knows, in the last years, we try also to emphasize and to know our philanthropic initiatives. because we believe that investing in young people, in knowledge and in higher education is something that could help us to have a better future, not only for the people that we can help, but for the society all over. And like a community, we are committed to do our part, and we wish to sustain the scholarship program of Bocconi University. And we decided to organize this project that is investing in the future. And I believe that this is a concrete way to make our values visible, and also a way to demonstrate our styles. And I know that also New York chapter is working on launching the fundraising campaign within this great initiative of all the community. And Andrea and Francesca will present the details maybe in the next days. So more is to come. But in the meanwhile, you see in this chart this initiative, and we share also in the chat the link that where you can find some more details about this project. And you can also donate something if you want. So thanks again to all. And now we can start with our interesting webinar.
Thanks, Anna. So folks, I think that for those that have been in the call with us in the past few months, we already mentioned this, and we finally were able to get ahead on creating the actual platform for the fundraising campaign we want to launch for the remaining part of the year and for all next year. The goal is to be able to sponsor one student in Bocconi for a partial scholarship for 3 years of the bachelor. So it's an amazing opportunity and challenge. Francesca and I will make sure that we share with you, all the information, and we are on top of, all the information around the scholarship. Plus, we are the first chapter that launched such an ambitious goal for a specific chapter. So, as usually people in New York do, let's make it big and let's make sure we achieve the target we want. The target is 20K, and this will cover, as I said, partial scholarship for 3 years in Bocconi. More details to come. You have the link in the chat. The best way, so that the website is still work in progress, but the donation button works. So the best way to tell us if the things work is to go there now and try it out. So you can try it out, donate already, and you will see that you get everything recorded, and you also receive the tax donation, the form for the donations on your email. So go there, give a try, and more to come with Francesca in the next few months. Other two piece of information before we jump into the core of this conversation. As we usually do every month, every second Tuesday of the month for the past 5 months during this pandemic, we gather together with glasses of wine and avocado and all the rest, and we discuss a bit. We learned that it's a good moment for people who were not able to travel back to Italy, people who started Bocconi only virtually, or new members of the community in New York, or more senior members of the community. So as usual, we post the event on the LinkedIn page, and also you will get the link now in the chat. And so feel free to join us. Glass of wine, very informal, and we do this every second Tuesday of the month to make sure that everyone knows where to gather, even in this time where we cannot physically gather together. Last but not least, for those who haven't had the chance to meet yet, these are the faces, the hearts, and the minds, and the hands, and the time that put everything together for the chapter in New York. As I mentioned already, Francesca for the fundraising, Luca for the communication, Riccardo and Vincenzo for the community at large, and Vincenzo and Manfredi specifically for the coaching program that we launched 2 weeks ago. Also here, the first chapter in the world outside Milan doing it. So good stuff. These are the faces. Feel free to add them on LinkedIn, talk to them, talk to us, bug us for any idea you have. We are the ones behind everything, and we are happy to bring your ideas to life. All right, so I think that we are ready to start and get into the meat of the conversation, and with a debate around whether to use this image or not. But the idea around this Bocconi New York City Talks is to discuss questions that you might have had in your mind, and some of the questions that we heard and we had ourselves in this past few months is. Should I stay or should I go, right? To mention like an intellectual reference to Clash. And after all the crisis and all the restriction in place, is the big city model in crisis? Is New York worth? So we thought about asking three members of our community who have been here long enough, but we will have them describe their journey. To ask them their opinion and asking them those questions. So this session is more for all of you. It's less of an interview, more as a chat, just in a virtual format. The idea is we will be successful if we are able to kind of answer your questions around what the future might hold. Okay. So let me take, I'll put off the presentation, so we will make sure that we have the spotlight on the speakers. But probably, it would be nice to have like a small intro from each one of you, Alberto, Roberta, and Giovanni. And thank you for taking the time for joining this group. Probably the first question is around who are you, but most importantly, what made you come to New York and what made you stay for all these years? Alberto, do you want to go first?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. It's a great pleasure to be here. So I came to New York for the first time in the mid-'80s. I was a second-year student at Bocconi, I think, back then. I came here for an internship. I worked for a few months, 5 or 6 months, with McKinsey, and that kind of changed my life in the sense that, one, I decided I was not going to go into consulting. I was going to go into academics. I didn't really like the job. But, I was young, never been beautiful, but young, and I really loved being here. I mean, it was, I had some money for the first time, and I really thought, my experience, but the 6 months here were between the best of my life. And so I thought I would come back. Then, life goes around. I came to the US for a PhD. I got a job at MIT, one of the best departments in the world. I didn't like it. My wife back then also didn't like it. We decided we go back to Europe. We spent 2 years in Paris. I lived in Paris. I got a job at Barcelona. I decided I was going to Barcelona. And then by complete pure chance, somebody called me from here, from NYU, and said, would you ever be interested? And I had this agreement with my wife that we would go back to Europe. We had a small kid. We wanted to raise the kid in Europe. NYU was a fantastic place, but still. And so I spoke to my wife and she said, but New York is Europe. And so we came. And, and we've been here. And it's really, really, I mean, of course, I'm telling you the story, but it's really, we live the life of Europeans, or Italians here. But in a fantastic environment in many other dimensions, and we loved it. And and the idea was we would raise the kid in Italy sooner or later, but then now the kid is here, lives in New York too by himself, but lives in Brooklyn, like where young kids live nowadays.
People are.
Yeah, like you, exactly. So young kids live in Brooklyn, lives in Brooklyn, he's very happy, and I'm here.
Beautiful, beautiful. I like what you said, like New York is Europe. Like, and I think that New York is a lot of things for a lot of people. Cool stuff. Roberta, what about you?
So I moved to New York City in the early 90s. It was for business reasons and with the intention of spending maybe 6 months and then go back. I got very engaged in what I was doing. I loved it. I loved the energy of the city. I loved the mentality, the fair competition. And I loved the sense of accomplishment that you would actually achieve by doing and being proactive. And I loved the way of working in the United States. A bit before, we had opened our direct office in New York, and so I found it an interesting prospect. And so I committed to stay a little bit longer than the initial 6 months. And my family was happy that I wanted to be part of the family business. And so those couple of years then became almost 28 years up to now, believe it or not. That time I was traveling a lot, and for me it was New York City, but also the United States and Asia in particular, because those were the years in which the Asian market was started booming a lot with its export, especially to the United States. And that has always been the biggest market, really. So if I look now back to this 28 years, for me it has been a very positive life, but business experience, and especially it's been a learning experience for the interesting people I met, and for the fact that I always had the feeling that here in the United States, nothing is too big, and nothing is impossible. So I really had the feeling that New York City represented all this, and the people are always ready to listen to you if you have a very good idea, and then there is a way of doing things that is incredibly efficient, and that is maybe a combination of the discipline Americans have, but also the ability to avoid as much as possible the bureaucracy. So I have to say I was really, really fascinated by all these characteristics. And then among the other positive characteristics that I found really attracted to is this common sense of resilience. And indeed, I have I can mention a couple of big episodes. That one was, if I look back at 2001, during the Twin Tower attack at the World Trade Center at 9/11, and that was an incredible tragedy in which New York City really came together, reset and rebuilt. And the thing that fascinated me the most is that in less than 2 months, in November indeed, the New York Marathon brought back over 50,000 participants for the annual race, and this really served like an expression of the strengths of and the human solidarity, and was a real demonstration of how these people are strong and ready to react, resilience, and everyone. And in a few months, you could have this feeling that the city was trying to little by little recompose itself.
And I love that you mentioned this thing of the resilience, because I think we're going to touch this also, later in perspective of what's happening now, right? I think that that resilient aspect is something that makes a big city, but specifically New York, right? So
yeah,
that's a very cool one. So New York is Europe, sense of accomplishment, fair competition, sense of resilience. Giovanni, what about you? So Giovanni, can you tell us a bit more about you, what brought you here and what made you stay?
Hi, thank you for inviting me. I'm happy to be here. So it's a strange story. 12 years ago, one of the largest CPG company made an offer for acquisition of our group, our family business. I'm third generation in the business, and now I import in the United States. I was 32 at the time, and I asked my family not to sell. And my uncle said, if we don't sell, we have to buy our partner in the States because they want to sell. So he said, if we don't sell, you have to go to the States. I said, okay, I'll go to the States. Not big, big. I said, let me talk to my wife. I went home and I spoke with my wife, and my wife said, oh, it's exciting. Let's go to New York. And I told my family, I'm going to stay in New York, guarantee for 3 years. I'm going to set up everything. If my family doesn't like New York, after 3 years, I come back.
Sorry, Giovanni, where were you before Milan?
I was in Rome. My wife is in Rome, in Italy. And I saw, there was 2008, and I'm still here. I love New York. My family loves New York. We have been, New York is the largest, the United States is the largest market for our company with the majority of the growth. We have had big satisfaction both on the business side and the family side. I believe it's a city and a country of opportunities, again, both from a personal and business side. So we're still here.
I love it. I love it. So the opportunity comes back, you know, the exciting journey. So why don't we, I mean, the second question that we have, and this characterizes New York or probably any big city, right? So if you can share an anecdote around, you know, your experience in New York, like think about the best experience and the worst experience. I think that everyone here can relate to a very good moment, a very sad moment in the city. So I would be curious to hear from you. Can you share the best and the worst moment that you experienced in New York? So who wants to go first? Alberto, you want to go?
Sure. Yeah, best moment, it's hard. Many fantastic moments every day. You know, I'm here because I stayed here. I told you why I'm here, but I stayed here because, you know, I have a job which, especially 25, 30 years when I came here 30 years ago, you know, it was unbeatable. And the level of the quality of the academic jobs and research here is exceptional. And the city has a very strange, is a fantastic vibe. This department is not, you know, the best economics department in the world, but it's the strangest one, the oddest one. It's weird. People are weird, and it's fantastic. It's, you know, it gives you ambitions to do different stuff. I moved from being a mathematician to doing crazy stuff in sociology. It's just, I would never have done it here, I think. So, okay, so that's, but for somebody like me, came here, as I said, I had a relatively small child. I mean, a small child, it was 5 or 6 when he came here. The issue, you know, it's always, so everything is fantastic. We all loved it. The issue was always, can you really raise a kid in a city like this, right? So that's always the issue, one kid or more than one, right? So it's expensive, okay, but really, you know, you're afraid, and it's a big city, and there's always this, especially in the US, there's always this idea, you know, of growing kids in the suburbs. So the anecdote I want to tell, one of the best moments for me, so I always was very worried, you know, I was doing this, it seemed to me that it was going well, and it seemed, you know, my son was happy, but the moment I understood, you know, that in some sense it was right was a long time ago. He's now 26. When he was 12, 13, something like this, where he was going to a school not far, like 10 blocks from where we live. And he wanted, you know, 12, 13, he wanted to go by himself, to school by himself. And I thought, okay, but at the same time, again, this is a big city, it's New York, we are worried, you know. So I had this whole discussion with him, saying, you know, sure, we can try, but, you know, you have to be careful, people in the street, crime. And he looked at me, and he had grown here, and he looked at me and he said, "No, Papa, don't worry. This is New York." To him, New York was the epitome of the safe place. And I think, and then I understood, and I think this characterizes really, and that's why I want to say something that's fantastic about New York, which is, of course, it's, you know, a city of 8 million people. It's a fantastic city, difficult in many ways, but it's a neighborhood place also. My son did not grow up when he was a kid. He grew up in the village in a very, very small environment. You know, he was playing soccer. We knew everybody. Everybody of his age in the village was coming to my place, was playing soccer in front of. We have one of the few small little, you know, not gardens, whatever, places where you can play soccer, and they would come and play. So, you know, I thought this is one of the beautiful things about this town, is that you can, you know, it's a neighborhood, and at the same time, it's a fantastic city. So that's the best moment, I think. The worst moment, I have to go back with what Roberta was saying. The worst moment was September 11th. It was a terrifying, and that's the other side. Again, as a father, you really want to grow a kid in a place where it could be this dangerous. I mean, I really thought that was probably, in fact, that year I went, you know, the year after I went to sabbatical at Bocconi, because we thought we would go back. I thought it was really, you know, it was really, and then, as Roberta said, things changed quickly, and we changed quickly. We realized the world was different, but was still livable, and there was no better place.
And we will touch that again. I mean, in the last portion of our conversation around what is the change that you saw after the crisis. But I like what you're saying around the neighbors feeling, even if it's an 8 million people place, right? Roberta, fun thing, bad thing that happened to you in your experience?
Something bad? Frankly, I can't say I had luckily anything bad that happened to me that I recall dramatically. I think New York City certainly is a difficult city for many aspects, but probably, I mean, I lived this past almost 30 years here, so I cannot compare with other cities because I lived here. But I think I mean, every city in the world can be difficult, it depends, but what I loved is again the energy and the possibility to do things, the realizing that you actually can do things if you want to. Of course, you have to work hard. Of course, you have to try to be open to meeting people, but what you're exposed to, it is so much, and people you meet, the variety of people, diversity of people and cultures is so wide that your life really becomes so intense, and that's really what I loved, because sometimes I compare my life with the life of some other friends that I'm still very good friends with overseas in Italy, but they did lived a totally different life, maybe quieter, maybe with fewer things. I think that I enjoyed living the intensity of my life and of the city. So I found that this was the perfect match for me. And of course, this is not good for everyone, but yes, if I think of the bad things could have been the 2008 financial crisis, the 2001 Twin Tower attack, these big things now in this past 8 months, that is not only New York City, but is all over the world, that have, of course, represented many challenges to everyone globally. But New York City, yes, it is tough. It is difficult. You have to be willing to work harder, to go around things, and eventually you can achieve. I'm thinking, for instance, I'm looking at the current situation, and I'm thinking to all the restaurants. I'm walking on the street and I'm looking at all the restaurants that reacted to build outdoor seating in order to include more diners, and all those stores that are selling curbside or selling online. And they're trying to reinvent themselves. This is happening not only in New York City, it's happening all over the world, probably, as we all know. But this is a positive message. So it is New York City, it is the world, it is Milan, it is Genova, it is everywhere. Right now, it is tough. For instance, now it's tough, but it's tough in New York City like anywhere else. This crisis is tough, and it's longer than expected. And probably we will see the worst of it in the next 6 to 10 months. So we have to be prepared. But in the end, I think that leaving the city is not an answer. It could actually create, temporarily create opportunity to others who promptly would take the advantage and come and start the cycle again. So it is a sequence of cycles that we have lived, at least that I have seen, that I have lived in this past 30 years that I've lived here.
And I like Roberta, that you basically, like most like New York lovers, when you ask them, like, you know, tell me something bad about the city, and everyone contextualizes and say, well, I mean, there are bad things, but you know, the beauty overcomes, and the intensity, as you mentioned, and all the good qualities are, you know, outpace everything bad that could happen. So I love that you give this kind of hardcore New Yorker view on why this is one of the most interesting places to live in. So I like it. It's complicated to ask for a bad event because people don't, you know, they always put it in context. So that's super interesting.
Yeah.
Giovanni, go ahead. Sorry about that. I didn't want to.
No, I was saying, if there is anything I've learned about New York City, is that we never give up. That's what they say, right?
Right.
We have gone through many crises before, and I think this city and this country can handle it. Yeah, and I like it. It's true. We see this kind of resilience as a common theme. But I want to kind of add, and I will go back to the resilience. But let's ask Giovanni, you at least, give me something, you know, a good and a bad thing that happened to you in New York that made you think about, why did I move here? And
I agree with Alberto that there are so many good things to New York. So there's a long list of that you can definitely say about New York. I actually didn't think about what his son said, and it's true. I mean, New York is probably one of the safest cities, regardless of what we hear. If you compare even with Italian cities, New York is safe, and we have a life that we do things that you know, you don't put your wallet in the front pocket. You don't think about in New York. You go to Italy, you need to think about it. Right. So that's a good point, actually. But what I was thinking, I was trying to find something more recent that even, and it is something that really impressed me. Again, how the New Yorkers step up. Is I don't know, I mean, I guess many of you know the Strand, the bookstore, the famous bookstore of New York. It's the oldest one, it's a 3-generation. A few weeks ago, the Strand posted on their social, we need help. We're gonna shut down if you don't help. A long line of New Yorkers line up around the building, all around the building in line to shop at the Strand. to me, this is the power of New York, and this is the one of them.
I love it.
Bad things. I wasn't here for September 11. I actually got married 3 days before that, and so all my US guests, they couldn't participate, of course. And but the worst episode I had here, it was probably Sandy, and what we saw in many people working for us, they were affected, and I had a friend to rescue at 29th floor with all their stuff. They were visiting New York, and I saw, you know, the desperation on the eyes of the in the eyes of the people that lost, you know, their houses and stuff in you know, in the Brooklyn area and in the Staten Island and those kind of. So that was really a sad time and bad experience. Other than that, I don't really have bad experience.
I love it. You're never gonna get anything negative from New York. I love it. So before we move to the last part of our conversation, I want to remind everyone in the call, and I saw like 45 people connected, that you can write down your questions in the chat, and then we're gonna pick your name and make sure that your question is answered by the speakers. But why don't we move to the last part of the conversation, and is this kind of message of hope, right? So think about those who have been here not long enough, or think about those that they're asking themselves, is it still worth it, right? Or what the future will be for the city, for New York, but for the model of the large city at large, right? What is your kind of word of wisdom? What do you think is going to happen, knowing and seeing what you saw in the past crisis? Who wants to take it?
I can start if you want.
Sure.
What I see in New York is I don't see in this crisis. I see this crisis being like every other crisis, but different at the same time. In the sense that, as every other crisis, New York will react. The United States will react, and will be over. I don't have any doubt about it. The only difference here, we don't control the timing. There is a virus. Thank God there is the news of the vaccine. So I always been positive since day one, and I'll continue to be. My personal perception is that a year from now, maximum, we're going to go back like it was before. I don't believe in New York as being empty, people leaving New York. All the people that left, that today are at the Hamptons or are in the suburbs, when New York is going to be back live, they're going to come back. They're going to keep the second house. Many people that have the opportunity will have a second home, will probably work smart working for a couple of days, but smart working doesn't work long term. I don't believe in smart working full. I believe that few days you can work smart in a remote. And so I don't see this concern. I see actually, as Roberta was saying, this is time of opportunity for people that don't leave. I don't see a reason at this point to leave New York. If you haven't left, I won't leave now. So I don't see negative things coming. And again, the only thing is the length of the crisis can be 6 months or another year because of the vaccine. But there is no reason why New York. And actually, I was on a call with an investor in Detroit that invests in Detroit. Even Detroit, which is definitely not New York, is blooming right now. And they have a lot of investors, people going there, and they don't see problem in the near future for a city like Detroit.
I love it. And you know, folks, just FYI, we picked you know, Giovanni, Roberta, and Alberto for their experience, but also because after talking to them, it was clear that they had a point about the city that was more than a transactional relationship, right? So they can really tell a story of love and resilience for those that have been in the city long enough to know it by hand. Roberta, what is your kind of piece of advice for those who are asking themselves, should I stay or should I go?
Look, for instance, if you look at now we are of course in a recession, look at what it was in 2008 and 2009, when we had New York was hit very hard by the financial crisis and Great Recession, and yet New York has always seen itself as the financial capital of the world and has proved resilient, and indeed it came back. Why? Because besides Wall Street, the city depends on its restaurants, on its on all the shopping area, on Broadway, on the theater district, and the art and entertainment, and everything rebounded. Why? Because of course also the real estate market went down, and so young people who initially had moved to the suburbs found going back to New York an opportunity, because of course it was more attractive, the real estate. And bringing back the young people to the city meant engaging more business and more art, restaurants, and more, and all the singles who came in and they needed to go to the restaurant every night to eat, and the shopping areas and the Broadway. And so the city started beating back again. So this is a sample. Same for the tourist. The tourist found visiting New York City attractive because it was less expensive. And that started little by little, the cycle, brought back business little by little. So I think this crisis is much harder, it's much tougher, also because frankly, we don't know. We don't even know if this vaccine will be real or when we will have it, and if we really will have it, but hopefully soon. But it will, if everything goes as they say, it will pass. It will pass, and even already it is, as you said, an opportunity, because the real estate market is a little bit softer, yes, but there is somebody who's ready to come and buy. And so that little by little brings back the life of the city. So I really believe that there is no need in leaving the city.
I love it. I love it. And you know, once I heard with some of my friends here that everyone is saying we cannot wait for the day of celebration, right? So when we're going to have a vaccine and we're going to have like a moment in which we will be able to say we're ready to go back, the city will, you know, explode or implode of joy, right? It's similar to what happened for the election too, like a few days ago, but I think even more. Alberto, what do you think? I mean, if I come to you and I say, I mean, I'm about to leave, I think this is not the place. What would you say?
Well, in one word, I would tell you, you know, if you're rich, get a house in the Hampton and stop whining. No, I mean, I want to go back to what everybody else has said. I agree with everybody. I am a bit more optimistic even in terms of, you know, the timing of this. I think, in fact, you know, everything we know is the vaccine is going to work. I think we're going to have it fast. I'm optimistic about this. And as everybody else was saying, you know, this is a recession, but the recession is induced by the situation, by the health policies. And we're, you know, New York and the rest of the country is going to go back very quickly from this point of view. But let me play just a second the economist here. The only issue is this crisis. So the crisis itself, I think, you know, it's not a big deal. It's going to be resolved quickly and well. I think, though, what happened is that the crisis arrived and manifested itself along two dimensions that were already there and are important. The first is there's a transition in the way we work. I completely agree with Giovanni. You know, I think remote, you know, at the beginning we discovered that we were very productive remotely. We thought we couldn't work, and in fact we can and we do well. But after a month, you know, I wanted to scream, and I'm back in my office every day, even though not many people are here, are alone in my office, but it's just so much better. I think. But so having said this, though, there is a transition towards working remotely. As he said, I think people will start working a couple of days. I mean, the people who do, not blue collar jobs, but white collar jobs, often they'll do a couple of days at home and the rest in the office. And this changes the structure of the city in important ways, not dramatical, but in important ways. So we are in the middle of this, and it depends how the city will react. The city and the world will react to this. The second dimension is, of course, the fiscal crisis. A big deal. It's important in New York. If the people who leave are the rich guys, they'll take away fiscal resources to the city. The city is in trouble. It'll need to be dealt well. I don't think the current administration is doing that well. Unfortunately, today they closed the schools even. In any case, so I think there's something to manage here, both on the transition towards a bit more remote working and on the fiscal transition to the cities. There's things to do, but there's no reason why we don't do this well.
I love it, and it's we can see how we're listening to this, but I want to make sure that we also ask the folks in the conversation to share their questions. So I see a couple of questions in the chat. Vince, do you want to go with yours? I see yours is the first, right?
Absolutely. Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, everyone. And Alberto, I would like to build actually on what you were just mentioning. So there are so many factors defining the post-COVID New York. We know numbers now probably are not that positive. I mean, restaurants with outdoor dining, it's only 1/3 of them, about 10,000. About 5,000 to 7,000 have closed or are going to close. LinkedIn, I saw they estimated that 20% of the workforce from New York have permanently relocated away from New York, and this as of September. And so all of this is changing the dynamic of the city. But I agree that New York is going to come back. I don't know if it's actually 1 year. That would be amazing. But so how do you imagine this new city? All of you three are imagining the new city that is going to be rebuilt as a post-COVID city. Given that restaurant, entertainment, everything is going to be different, how do you think it's going to be different?
If I can answer on my side, I'm not 100% in agreement with what you're saying, in the sense that, not in agreement, I have a different vision. In the sense that, yes, it's a tough time for restaurants. Many restaurants are going to close, unfortunately, and it's not a good news for them. But there are so many people that want to come to New York to open restaurants. They want to come to New York to open offices. So yes, the remote impact of the office will impact the office space. So will be offices available, more company will come. Restaurant, other people will come for this. This is going to be an opportunity for people that want to open a restaurant. Today is cheap. Today you find a space available with restaurant equipment inside, a landlord willing to give a very nice lease, very interesting. So I think it's a combination. And once the people will come back to New York, we will need the restaurant again. The only part that I think will suffer is going to be the real estate, because those rent that were paid before, they can forget about in the commercial space, the office and the stores. So those crazy price for square feet will take probably 10 years to go back to that. That's what I think the industry that will suffer the most.
Roberta.
Can I completely agree. Just one quick thing. The restaurant business, the most interesting, I think many of us would agree, the most interesting part, stuff in the restaurant business before COVID was happening in Brooklyn for a reason. Okay, exactly because it was too expensive to open, but there was an enormous, activity in that dimension. There is no reason why this will not go back. And the fact that, the estimates are a third of the restaurant will close. It seems too high to me, but even if that's happening, I really think, as everybody's saying, the prices will make what they do. They'll clear markets, and there'll be a lot of new stuff going on in the city.
And it's interesting, Alberto, because we were talking yesterday, last week in the happy hour we did with the founder of the Avocaderia, this very hip place that started actually in Industry City in Brooklyn, with a menu all about avocado and a very strong communication and reach. They also been in Shark Tank. And they actually said the same thing. Like there's going to be a change for like a recycle and new people, new faces, old faces, right? Well, but the story is still there, and restaurants will open when there are opportunities. So, for example, they share with us that they opened in Brooklyn because it was the only place where they could get a lease without, with having $50,000 deposit, where they could do this thing from day one. So it's going to be, I think that actually nothing's going to be different. It's just going to be location with might change, but the idea of new and constant change will remain, exactly as you said. Roberta, what do you expect from the New York post this?
For sure, people have learned a lot. It's been a tremendous learning experience. Personally, I have to say that technology has helped us a lot in general, and has served us very well. Of course, people prefer to work in an office because people miss the human interaction and energy offered by sharing offices with colleagues. And also people like the separation of office and home life. But there are a few things that we will carry on with us in the future, some lessons. We will definitely use technology. We will definitely, I don't know, restaurants will continue to provide those services that they have improvised. And that was a push, a little push. So those winners, in a way, that were able to improvise and create something new and be innovative have been in a way the winners because of that. I mean, so in a very competitive environment like New York City, that it is competitive. In a way, those who were able to be creative, maybe they will continue to be creative, and they will continue in this flow, in this path. So yes, we will continue. Like in my business, for instance, we saw in this past year, and I have to say, including the COVID, it's almost a year, because we were talking of 9 months, 10 months, whatever it is, and it's going to be longer. I saw, for instance, the food industry. We're talking of restaurants. The food industry, yet it increased its imports of the 12%. So it's a big sign. So people somehow bought food or used the food, somehow were able to, if not, I wasn't going to the restaurant, but I was ordering in. And yes, with all the safety precautions, because I was putting everything in the oven for 350 degrees before eating it. But I was going basically to the restaurant. And
Roberta, said by someone who was the president of a international logistic company, we were having this discussion last week. Like you saw actually numbers going up. Like it was in a different way, in a different channel, but the numbers, kept going, and people kept feeding themselves, buying somehow. So it's negative, but it's not that negative. So I like your kind of analysis that it's grounded also in the fact you see every day at work.
Yes, and we also have to appreciate the fact that the government has helped businesses, has helped individuals, and that's overall positive.
Yeah, to keep up the demand. All right, so any folks, we have I want to make sure that we kind of like wrap on time, but I want to make sure that so we answer the questions from the audience. So I see a lot of known faces in the group, so feel free to ask your question. Unmute yourself or write it down, and we'll make sure that we ask the question to the speakers. Don't make me call you one by one, but I'm sure that there are other questions in your mind. And Luca, you can unmute people, right? Or if they're right, we can read things out loud. Any other question, thoughts? I have like a final one.
I actually unmuted everybody.
Here we go.
Doesn't seem it works. We don't have any question from the audience. I have one.
Go for it.
So for Professor Bisin, how do you think the pandemic will change the way universities work in the long term?
Oh, this is a difficult question. So, people like me always, so it's been 15 years that people are telling us, we're going to go remote. There are all these new mechanisms to teach, and they're very effective and successful, and you'll lose your job soon. This is not happening. But we all learned that I think like in the rest of the world, we all learned that there's a lot of things that you can do well online, remotely. And I think we will continue teaching or doing part of what we do remotely. This will enlarge enormously our audience. I teach now a class that there's a third is in New York, a third is in Europe, and the rest is in Asia, in China. And we have NYU, for instance, as universities all over the world. I have no doubt that after this, what we'll do is some of our courses will be shared online with at least other NYU campuses abroad. So this is going to change, but I think we learned. I think it's in the end. Again, maybe it's wishful thinking, but I think in academia, like in the business world, like Giovanni was saying, we learned that we can do this. We can do a lot of stuff online, but the personal interaction is different. And we will not, so in the end, I don't think we'll change. It'll be a little bit more productive. We'll have larger audiences online, asymmetric online classes and things of this sort. But in the end, if you want to do a PhD in economics, you're going to come here. You're just going to be in my own stuff on the whiteboard. Otherwise, it's very hard.
I love it. We have a question from Alessio. Alessio, I don't know if you want to take it or you want us to go and read it.
Yes, I can totally take it. So I don't know. I have a thought that the city will continue to attract a younger demographic, right? Because prices are going down. And if you are of a certain age, you don't really mind the virus. I mean, it's a blip in data and you continue to be attracted. But for people of an older age, and I think that skews a lot, how can I say, the overall scene in New York, because these are people with the most disposable income. There are many more opportunities now because you don't have to live in the city anymore to get a New York City salary and opportunity. So how do you guys see the demographics of the city evolve in the future?
Thanks, Alessio. Who wants to take it? Go, Roberta, go.
I don't see any changes, frankly, because I think that for older people, being in New York City means, in a way, it's safety, because you can feel comfortable in being in an apartment building with doormen that help you out, being able to walk out and eventually, yes, go with a mask, but walk out and have a hospital nearby or the park nearby, take a walk and have everything delivered home, because nowadays everything can be delivered home. Going in the suburbs, going to a suburbs is more, I think it's more for young family, maybe for or for people who really look for being in a larger home with, but not alone. So if I look at the elderly, I see them more comfortable, especially if you see a lot of people who are of families made of one or two people maximum. I see them feeling more comfortable in the city.
Honestly, I agree more with the position that Alessio was. By the way, Alessio is a big expert. He should be on a panel, not on the audience. But I believe that the city will change and will be younger. I think it will be a little bit of a Brooklyn effect. Will be a little Brooklyn people moving here, as Alberto was saying before. Restaurant opened in Brooklyn, people moved to Brooklyn because it was more affordable. And then became cool, but originally was more affordable. So I think we left that. And yes, the family with probably with kids moved out and will move out in the suburbs, but younger people will come to the city. And I think this will just fuel more New York. So I see as a positive things, and I think the change will happen.
Yeah, that was my thinking, that actually, the city can rejuvenate a little bit, and from there will be further growth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, there's an issue, of course, the virus, as you're saying, hits mostly or in most dangerous ways the old. Now, if you are envisioning a world where there's a virus like this every 3 or 4 years, then it's a whole different story, right? But once this is gone, New York, it's a fantastic city to retire for the reasons Roberta was saying, right? Everything's home, taxi, hospitals. It's very nice, actually, I think. I mean, of course, I'll go to Italy, but I'll go back. But a lot of people, think of retiring here, and I think that makes sense, right? So it's very similar to what we were thinking, I think. After 9/11, right? So if the city is hit by a terrorist attack every 4 or 5 years, then no, I mean then we're thinking about a completely different world. So if the virus comes back in different forms, then it's a whole different world. But in this situation, yeah,
I love it. I love it. I mean, if the goal of this conversation was to kind of share a positive message, I think we are totally achieving this. So we are on top of the hour, but I have a last question from Daphne, and I think it's very interesting. Actually, there are two. So I would take a quick comment. So the one from Daphne is around, what do you think is the one thing that people should know before moving to the city? Quick comment. Alberto, what do you think?
What should they know? I think they. Yeah, no, I don't know. I don't know. It's a fantastic place. They all know. I mean, it's well known everywhere. It's a fantastic place.
You will enjoy. You will enjoy.
You can find everything they want here. So there's not.
Yeah.
I love the law that clearly transparent. Last question from Laura Donati. Best and worst experiences during the confinement in New York. So something cool or something bad you experienced during this month of lockdown or soft lockdown. Roberta, do you want to start?
The best experience, I have to say family-wise, because work-wise, again, I missed going to the office, of course, like everyone else, but family-wise, I have to say it's been a great moment because I was able to spend a a lot of time with my family. So my children, my husband, and things that unfortunately we can't do so much all the time. So this has been incredibly nice. We discovered the breakfast together, lunch together, dinner together, and this was a really incredible moment. In fact, I invited my children to write a diary about it, because I said this is a moment that will not come back. We'll go back to, let's call it normality, even if normality actually was what we were living in a way, because it was like going back when I grew up. I grew up, my family, my father would come back home for lunch, and we all would sit at the table, eat, listen to the news, and all together, and then my father would go back to work. So this is a concept that does not exist anymore. So this moment has been, in a way, positive for me.
It's impossible to get anything negative from these three speakers about their experience. That's what I love. It's impossible. Even if we try, and that's the reason why we chose them. Alberto, best and worst experience during confinement?
Well, I have to go exactly opposite to what Roberta was saying, in the sense that, unfortunately, as I said, my son lives in Brooklyn, and you know, he used to come often, and he came much less during the confinement. And especially, you know, we had this tradition that where on Sundays or Saturday, whatever, he comes home and we have lunch and we watch Interplay. And, you know, soccer was gone. My son was in Brooklyn. Even when soccer came back, watching it on Zoom, it's not the
same. It's not the same. You're right, Alberto.
Yeah. Unfortunately for me, family played the other way, I have to say. And the best moment when Whole Foods started delivering again, there was a small moment where, you know, you couldn't find stuff. And actually, I have to say, just to, at that moment when Whole Foods was screwed up and you had to wake up at 7 o'clock in the morning to try to get something, I discovered that Italy delivered.
Yes, me too, yeah. me too.
Me too.
Oh, the best moment was the night after a month where we had the prosciutto home, and I know I sound, you know, the old Italian immigrant, but man, you know, that was like.
And well, why they didn't communicate this more broadly, right?
Yeah,
they actually did delivery, and
they delivered on the same day. It was spectacular. They would take orders by phone. It was spectacular.
And Alberto, by the way, your reference to Inter make people, you know, love in the chat when you see things.
I know people will hate me.
Open a fan club. Giovanni, what is your best and your worst experience during all of this?
I have to say, best. I agree with Roberta. It was the family time. I mean, to have to spend with the children all that time, we probably won't have again in life, and probably, thank God, we won't have another virus like that. But at the same time, will be, you know, we will keep in our memories that time, and was good. There was bonding, was discovering different way to be together. The bad part and the sad part, which didn't affect me, but affect many people that were home alone, like older people and even little children that maybe were single children, so with no siblings. And being home, that I think affected like their growth, even socially, for some time. You know, we don't know the effect that will have in their growth, but I think that was the worst part of it.
Love it. I mean, love it, but also it's true. Like, we don't still know what is the long-term effect of what this is going to be. All right, so folks, we are 11 minutes, you know, over. That, you know, due to the content, it's not even that much. But probably, you know, a couple of points that I want to, you know, to bring on. First is that it's impossible to carve out anything negative from someone that has been long enough in New York to love the city as much as you know, most of the people love it. Second, that the future probably is bright. We don't know exactly when, you know, things will go back to normal and new normal, but according to what we heard today, probably there's no doubt that things, you know, will resurface back again as usually happens for the city. And the third point is that this is a community, and you know, the idea of the whole conversation was to make sure that you could talk to people that usually you don't talk to, and to hear stories, then lives that usually are different from yours. So if you need more of this, please reach out to us. We are here for this. And the idea of the whole Bocconi Alumni community is to connect with this broader family that we have all over the world. All right, so I want to thank you, the 40+ people that were online for this hour more long conversation. I want to thank the speakers for taking the time and for being active members of the Bocconi community. And get ready, because we're gonna bug you even more in future. And as Elena said, this is like a fresh new chapter that started a few months ago, but we want to do more and more of this. And I think that these stories are what makes this group unique. So thank you for your time. Thank you for being with us, and have a wonderful rest of the week. All right. Have a nice one.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.